We're back with Doug Porteous of Meewasin, talking about the Meewasin Valley and all of the good things that are happening in our fine city with this spectacular corridor that a lot of us showcase when people come to our city, and as well as the local residents. Doug, there's a lot of volunteerism in our city, and no doubt Meewasin has volunteers within the organization. What do you do with some of them, and do you recognize a lot of them in the organization throughout the years?
Yeah, we have all kinds of volunteers on our committees, out in the valley. They usually come as a group: Girl Guides, Humanity First, school groups. I'm going to be talking a bit about, we have 28,000 people who every spring volunteer to help clean the river valley and the parks and trails in Saskatoon, and that is significant.
Yep.
We celebrate volunteerism. One of the ways is we have a conservation leadership program. And this past year it was won by a fellow by the name of Paul Hanley. And a slide will be shown with Paul and a fellow by the name of Robert White unveiling the St. Barb Baker signage. Now, who's St. Barb Baker? Well, he's the Johnny Appleseed of the world. We have an afforestation area named after him, but we have a sign on the Meewasin Trail up by the Diefenbaker Center. The last tree he planted was about in 1982. He came back to the university to receive a doctorate. He had planted trees and organized groups all around the Sahara Desert. And Paul and a group, Paul Hanley and a Baha'i group, thought this was important to recognize St. Barb Baker, and so they raised the money, gave it to Meewasin, and said, will you put this sign in so people know who St. Barb Baker is? This past year, we partnered with the city to develop the Meewasin Northeast Swale Master Plan, the 26 kilometers of an area that is quickly being surrounded by the urban community that has to be protected. It's not a place where you can build houses because the water table is so high, but it is an ecosystem in itself, a natural sponge for the city, and all kinds of floral fauna that are there. It's heritage resources there, the telegraph line that connected Russia to Canada way back in the early 1900s, and those kinds of things that are very important to protect. So we developed a master plan on that, working with the city of Saskatoon. It's gone to the Meewasin board, and it will be going to the city, and it's a program for something like a full program for you to interview in the future. We continue to work on modifications to the conservation zone all the time, just as to what is in the best interests of Saskatoon. We delivered public programs and special events to more than 72,000 at our two interpretive centers, Beaver Creek Conservation Area and the Meewasin Valley Center, as well as outreach programs in the valley. All grade 3s in Saskatoon come to the Meewasin Valley Center to learn about the history of Saskatoon. The grade 5s go to Beaver Creek to learn about the floral fauna of our river valley. And these programs, public programs, like I said, included we call it the Meewasin Affinity Credit Union Cleanup, because they sponsor, and we have 28,000 people who register to clean the river valley. Very significant and important in our when we're looking for leveraging and fundraising. And we continue to promote conservation through education, through enforcement, through partnerships, and all kinds of partnerships with school groups and there's Saskatoon Roadrunners, Swell Watches, Whitecap Dakota First Nations, Waniskewan, Partners for Saskatchewan River Basin, all kinds of businesses that partner with us. And I can't list them all. It's so important for Meewasin's existence. The skating rink downtown, people think that's one of the best things to do in Saskatoon. Reader's Digest said it was, in 2006, it was the best outdoor skating spot in Canada. And that then beat out the Rideau Canal, so I think that's pretty significant. That's significant.
Yeah.
We developed a third season of interpretive cross-country skiing at Beaver Creek, where school groups and scout groups and guide groups and nonprofit groups can attend to learn about the snow conditions in the river valley, but do it from the skis, and animals, and how they live in winter, and how they're protected and how they're nurtured. So it's an interpretive program, but it's there at no charge to people that want to come out and use the program, which is significant. A 17th season of interpreting canoe tours where participants learn about the South Saskatchewan from the river. In fact, our friend Simon here, he was out with us about 2 weeks ago, I think it was, and any nonprofit group can access that program free of charge. Where does the water come from? where does it go to, what affects it along the way, the river water, learning about the river, the water in the river from a canoe. I think it's the only program around that does that. We have a lot of, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you can't really do that on the internet and have that same experience. I think it's wonderful you have those opportunities here.
And we're open 7 days a week, Meewasin. So when people come to Saskatoon, tourists, we point them in the right direction. And again, what is it? Every tourist that stays in Saskatoon another day, it's another $200 generated in the local economy. And whether you can get a low-cost wedding somewhere or a high-cost wedding, twice we've had the wedding receptions at the Meewasin rink. The rink has also had Gene Simmons out there and his family. We've had Wayne Gretzky. We've had Dinokia Breyer had a jam can curling event there. We launched the 2000 Millennium out there with the Lieutenant Governor and the fire department and the police department, the ambulances and the church bells all ringing their sirens and turning on their bells, and so it's a significant thing for downtown Saskatoon. Well, how long does it take to tube to Saskatoon? If you're going to launch an inner tube and get in it and float to Saskatoon, how long will it take to get there? Are you going to get there before nightfall so you can get home and get to bed before school in the morning, that kind of thing? We get those questions too. And it all depends on river flow. We focus on safety. We work with the Saskatoon Fire Department, and who are very important, as monitoring the river, and that's significant. So it was, all of this is, Meewasin, just created by wise people with great vision years ago. Very successful, 36 years into the 100-year plan, but our statutory funding isn't what it used to be. And we've been losing 1% to 2% a year. And this past year, we had to borrow $500,000 from $800,000 in our reserve, just our capital reserve, just to maintain. Our participating parties are aware of this. The city, the province, and the university. The two significant ones, funders, are the city and the province. They're very sympathetic to it. They're trying to get a fix to it. And I know they have a lot of other concerns on their plate as well, and this kind of thing. They have to balance that. But this is a very significant year for Meewasin, and if we aren't able to address this, we won't have the money we need to leverage other types of money, and we'll have to have major changes as of April 1st. That's one of the concerns.
April 1st of 16 you're talking about.
Yes.
Now. Yeah. What does that mean? So you have an $800,000 capital fund. You've taken $500,000. You have $300,000, and that's not being replenished.
No.
And it's in danger of collapsing in spring of 16.
Right.
What is the impact to the organization if that happens?
Well, that's what we're trying to determine right now. And our board has asked us to come up with different scenarios. And, it could be not building trail anymore. It could not be offering public programs. It could be not having the matching money to leverage outside funding. If we're not able to address it, it will be significant, and it will really change the shape of Meewasin in the future.
Do you see it in a holding pattern, let's say, if the funding isn't increased or added to, that we do have the 80 kilometers of trails, that would be the end-all and be-all, that there is no more growth, and we have to be content with that? Because you mentioned here it was about $600,000 a year just to keep what we have.
Yes.
So this is impacting the future growth and that 100-year plan.
Yeah, it will affect our conservation programs. It'll affect our development programs. It'll affect our education programs. And Meewasin's mission is to conserve the heritage resources of the River Valley by conservation, development, and education. And right now, we have to determine what is important and what, if we had to have anything go, what would go. And that's whatever it is. It's a tough one. And we're just going through that process now, working through that with our board. And the board, of course, is made up of 4 representatives from the city, 4 from the province, and 4 from the university.
When you look at, maybe let's just go a little shorter term rather than the 5 years. Let's say the end of 2016. What would be your best case scenario that optimally you would like to see happen?
We know that we would need approximately another 600,000 a year. If we had 200,000 from the city, and the city did come through this year to help us out in that regard, that was important. And we'd need another 400,000 from the province just to maintain the status quo. And if that could keep us going, then we would be in a good situation for the future, to figure out where we're going to go.
Do you have limits in terms of the 100-year plan, what the final product will look like in terms of, we're going to fast forward to 2178 and say, or pardon me, 2078, and say 100 years into this plan and it's done, what does that completion look like?
Well, right now, Meewasin runs from one end of Cormant Park to the other. So if we were going from basically Pike Lake
Right.
to Clark's Crossing,
Right.
and that would be trails on both sides of the river, links and nodes, and through the parkland, and that would be the 100-year plan. Some sort of river center and lots of activities celebrating and conservation education programs in that area.
Saskatoon is a magical place. We're full of resilient people, and I have no doubt that this will come to fruition. I think good people like yourself and others at the organization, it's in good hands. I really wish you well, and I think that Saskatoon will pull through.
Thank you very much. I appreciate being on the program, and I'll see you down at the fitness center again.
Good. Thank you.